In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can counter the Knight armies inside a 40k 10th edition. Whether this be Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, Freebladers, Dreadbladers, anything, I'm going to show you how you can counter them for any army you choose to play in a competitive or casual single kind of game. Now, the reason I'm making this is because after playing the, I would say, tens of games I've played against Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights put together, I've learned something very crucial about having to counter them, and that sometimes their greatest strength can actually be exported as their greatest weakness, and you can counter them in an amazing and incredibly effective strategy that many armies you can't actually counter with because of the Knight's very specific strength that they employ in the game. So, I don't waste any more of your time, let's just jump straight into how exactly you can counter Knights 40k 10th edition. Now, what can make Knights so good? I'm not saying they are amazing, top army in the game like Adeptus Custodes or Necrons are. I'm just saying they're a quite good army, and these are the reasons it can basically make them good. So, what can make Knights very, very good? Now, their ability to stat check is unlike any army in the game. Obviously, there are individual profiles like the Manticore or very specific, like, hard-hitting weapons that can outdo, like, an overall one single gun Knight standard, but I'm talking about, like, an army-wide stat check. These guys hold the trophy there. The Knight armies are incredible at stat checking anything, whether this be OC, movement, toughness, armor save, wound count, shooting threat, melee threat, anything. They will outdo other armies because they're designed in a way that makes them this terrifying unit. Obviously, in the lore, they're massive, they're brutal war machines. They're meant to be terrifying. They're meant to enforce power upon the battlefield and even things out. That's the whole idea of them. So in the game, they reflect this in terms of being good at anything. Obviously, in a reasonable terms, of course. If you're going up against a squad of 20 boys, 20 corn berserkers, 20 Tormagauns, 20 Hormagaunts, you're obviously going to be out OC'd by that, considering like the 2 OC count. I'm talking about in a reasonable term, like going up against a very specific elite squad, like the Death Shroud Terminators for Death Guard, or like Terminator squads, just regular Terminator squads, or Knob squads, or just a reasonable amount of units. These guys will probably outdo them, and that's their whole idea. They're very good at just stat checking any army in the game, and being very good at just dwindling down numbers or outdoing the armies in different senses. And the biggest sense is going to be their OC count. A regular Knight has the OC count of 8, meaning you need a lot of energy to be proposed on a primary point to kind of score the Knight that is on it, making the resources required actually less kind of valuable than it is for the points, meaning that Knights can put so much pressure quite easily on a point and have to make you invest so much pressure into the point, in which term they will kill you because they're Knights. That's their whole deal. So most of the time they will outdo you in primary, they will outscore you in primary because of their ability to hold primary and put pressure on the primary point in terms of you having to waste units in there or put more resources than you want to into probably just to die in terms of taking a point once per game. So overall, these guys are very good at primary, and they're a very primary, like, scoring-centricated kind of army theme, as it brings upon the idea of, okay, well, I have my 3 8-bound and my Lord Invocatus, or my 6 8-bound, my Lord Invocatus on this point, but look, there's a massive Knight still above me. Okay, I'll do some damage. Oh, I did 5 damage. Whoop-de-doo, and all of a sudden, oh, 2 8-bound are gone, 4 8-bound are gone. Oh god, all my units are gone. He put precision on his melee weapons. Oh god, Lord Invocatus is gone, and my whole 8-bound squad is wiped. That's pretty much how Knights work. They will kill anything, especially with the precision stratagem in the fight phase, like for overall just general army stratagems. They're very good at, like, performing kind of assassination rituals, as if they want to kill something, they will kill it, and it's not hard for them to do. As you can see from the rapid fire battle cannon, like the range of 72 with D6 plus 3 attacks, BS 3, strength 10, AP minus 1, damage 3. Overall, this is like an average Knight's weapon, meaning you're going to be seeing a lot more of this on the board. And it's pretty brutal to see this guy just storm around the board, and especially when you've got like 3 or 4 of these guys storming around the board, it sucks, and it's really, really bad. And this can make Knights seem scary. When people go up against Knights, they think, oh god, they're going to table me, their weapons are amazing, they're incredible, I don't know what to do, and they're going to either battle shock me to hell, they're going to make me have nightmares about battle shock in my sleep, or they're going to just keep farming CP from their oath, and I won't have to do anything, and they'll just out OC me half the time anyway. But I want to propose a great theory that I've discovered from playing multiple games on like Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights and allied units, and how their greatest strength of being able to stat check well can actually be their biggest downfall in terms of being able to counter them, with most armies can actually do. So I'm going to propose to you the best and most effective way I've found of countering knights in a persistent and consistent way inside your regular 40k game. So let's jump into how to counter knights in 40k. Now, how do we counter the big boys? How do we take them down? What's the secret to doing them? And I'm going to tell you right now. You see, knights have a very specific playstyle unlike any other army, meaning they will basically outdo any army. They'll out stat check any army. They'll out OC, out toughness, out save value, out anything inside of 40k. But because they're doing this, this means the units you're taking are going to be less. There's going to be maximum 5, 6, 7 units in an army at one point, because the units you're taking are so amazing at doing this stuff. This is like basic Warhammer knowledge. The more good the units are in the game, the more expensive they're going to be to take, because the value you're bringing is more expensive in terms of points. Meaning that knights are going anywhere between 400 to 500 points, and wardogs are going anywhere between 100 to 200 points. Meaning you're not going to be able to take that many knights in an actual game. Meaning these are one of the only armies that you can actually prioritize killing instead of VP in certain situations. Now, this is the theory, is that knights are the only armies that you can actually table in a consistent manner. Now, obviously, if you're playing Tyranids, it's very easy to table things. Even if you're playing Orcs to a certain extent, it can be very easy to table things. Or if you're playing an elite army like Grey Knights or Cow to a certain extent, you can be tabled. This is common. Games get tabled. It happens. 40k goes on. But Knights are a very consistent army to be able to get tabled because of their low count, especially when you incorporate this with a lot of anti-vehicle and anti-tank, which is what the whole meta kind of revolves around in the current meta state of 40k. So, the best and most effective strategy at countering Knights is actually going to be to prioritize killing them over scoring. Now, obviously, if you're falling behind 20 points, you can't catch up. You know, they're maxing out their primary, they're maxing out their secondaries, they're doing very well. They're picked fixed, they're picked cleanse, they're doing very well. You might want to obviously think of scoring a couple of points maybe. But if you're in a good point lead, or you're kind of evening it up, and they've only got 3 units left on the board, kill them. Sure, they got a 50-point lead, but if you're in battle round 4 and they've got 1 unit left, and you've got 2 squads on them of 20 men, like, there's not much they can do. So, prioritizing killing can actually be a very effective strategy at maybe shortening games and being an amazing format of like a guaranteed win, because if you table the enemy opponent, even if they're 100 points ahead of you, they still can't win because they don't have any units on the board left to classify them as a victory, meaning that you win. That's what happens when you table an opponent. So having this ability to actually have a good potential tabling is basically like having this instant win free card in terms of not having to outscore the opponent. So you can actually think a lot less about strategy and outdoing them, and more about killing them in a reasonable standard. Obviously, if you're losing, maybe prioritize some scoring. I'm not saying you should just kill them all the time. Think logically, use some common sense, and have some good situational control to be able to put forward the idea of wanting to kill them. But all I'm saying is that it's a very viable option to outdoing them in a very fast time pace. So if you have the option, if you have the resources, if you have the units to be able to do it, killing them might not actually be the worst thing in the world. And the way you do this is prioritizing a lot of anti-vehicle and a lot of anti-tank. Things like the Manticore's rockets, things like the Squighog's war phase, things like the Death Shroud Terminators, just in general, can be very good at taking down things like this. So I prioritize these hard-hitting anti-vehicle units. Personally, when I was playing up against Chaos Knights, I actually did take my 3-man squad of mech guns with my big shock attack gun, simply for the reason of having some anti-tank in the game. Because obviously, yeah, it's a bit more points, but when you're going up with these guys, having this anti-vehicle, anti-tank nonsense in your army can be very effective. So take these hard-hitting units. If you usually like to have some more ball control, you play Tyranids, and you really like taking like the Endless Swarm detachment, maybe think of going with a bit more Monster Mash and a lot more anti-vehicle in terms of like the Biovores, the Carnifexes, the Old One Eye. Go for a lot more hard-hitting stuff, because you're going to be looking at a lot more potential of killing them. Obviously, outswarming them can do good, But if you're going up against very weak attacks, with their T10, T11, T12 even, I think, it's not the best, most effective way of going up against them with these tiny little attacks they're doing like strength 5, and you're rolling on 6s. Oh, what do you do? So having a lot more hard-hitting anti-tank, anti-vehicle guns or weapons or melee attacks can be very effective at taking these guys down. And I'm not saying with the Tyranids, it's a bit of a skewed example. You can still swarm them. You can still do that, but it's gonna be a lot harder than if you just were to go with things like the Manticore or the Leman Russ or these the massive, huge, annoying tanks. Just basically shoot them. Shoot them with hard-hitting guns, and you're most likely to take them down and win the game. And it's not the worst idea in the world to actually consider taking fixed secondaries. If you wanted to, you're going to be able to max out bring it down. If you follow my steps and go into more of a killing perspective, you don't really have to worry about primary, because if you're maxing out your bring it down secondary every time until they die, it's not much to lose. So bringing these hard-hitting units, like converting your army to more of a monster mash army in terms of hard-hitting anti-vehicle stuff, can be very effective. This is why I love going up against Chaos Knights with Orcs, because we are amazing anti-vehicle units with things like Squig Hogs, with things like Mozrog, with things like Beast Boss on Squigosaur. We're very good at taking down monsters. Monsters, they're vehicles. We're very good at taking down vehicles and monsters. So going up against these guys are very effective, very cool, and I actually like going in more of a beast snagger approach when going into Chaos Knights. So consider taking fixed in terms of just the ability to kill them and actually get max secondaries because of it. And if you're getting max secondaries until they die, it doesn't really matter after they die, because you can't really score any more points anyway. So overall, you just score until they die. Easy. And another option is that if you play things like Grey Knights, if you play things like Tyranids that have board presence and good board control, or even things like Death Guard with amazing deep striking, or things that have a lot more movement potential, things that can get up the board a lot, things like Tau have a lot of infiltrator and a lot of scout. Picking things like because you're picking fixed, having things like behind enemy lines, or cleanse, or things that involve a lot of more board presence and board control can work very well. So actually consider taking things that revolve around fixed secondaries, as you might be able to max out, bring it down until they die. And sure, you might not get the secondary all the time, but if you end up killing them anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's why I love versing like Knights, because you don't have to put as much pressure on yourself with scoring. You do have to obviously put pressure on yourself still scoring all the time. Don't get me wrong. Don't follow the advice of not scoring. You have to score every round. You have to do amazing scoring every round. There's no exceptions. But there can be a lot less pressure put on you for scoring when you're versing Knights. So that's going to be how to counter Knights in a sense. This might not work all the time, but for me personally, playing Orcs and Tau, it has worked very effectively at kind of bringing down and kind of turning down the idea of Knights being a very stressful army to verse, because it puts less pressure on me, allows me to go forth. But to be fair, I have a lot of anti-vehicle in my Orc list, so it might be a little bit of a biased thing for me. Personally, from games I've heard and games I've seen, playing games I've played with like a couple of armies, I honestly think that focusing on killing them, focusing on out-secondaring them, and even taking fixed secondaries can be a very effective thing at doing that. So now I'm actually going to talk to you individually about Imperial Knights versus Chaos Knights and the differences they hold inside of the game. So, Imperial Knights. I'm just going to move my head real quick. Move right here. Now, Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights are interesting because they implement more of a factor of big knights over armatures. These guys love the big knights approach. They don't really like taking smaller units. They prefer taking larger, more buff units. And they love shooting over melee. I found these guys prefer shooting. Like, if you just look at this picture, like, there's one, like, massive chainsaw, but most of the time, you've got, like, the Avenger Gatling Cannon, you've got the Ravager Cannon, you've got the Blast Cannon, you've got the Melter Guns, like, you've got the shooting. They love their shooting. So, Imperial Knights are a lot more shooting-oriented than they are melee-oriented, and a lot more focused on elite. These guys are more elite than Chaos Knights are, but because of that, you're looking a lot less into the factor of, like, board presence, because the armies you're taking are, like, 1 or 2, or some 3 to a certain extent, compared to, like, the 3-4 knights you're taking in your general list. So, being aware that you can, like, use these guys for a lot more elite purposes is very crucial. And these guys are going to be a lot more focused on holding that oath. They love that oath. You have to actually think about your warlord when you verse these guys. Now that Warlord traits are gone, obviously people don't think about that Warlord. Like, for example, half the time, like, mine's just Gazgob. I have Gazgob. Before that, it was like Captain Badrock because I couldn't even care about putting Warlord on it. I just thought, like, oh, in like a real life situation, oh, Mosrog would, okay, I'll put a Mosrog. But you have to actually think about your Warlord because if they kill your Warlord, that's 3 CP. If they hold your backfield, that's 3 CP. So things you think you wouldn't have to think about, like screening your backfield a little bit, or move blocking your backfield, or pushing up and doing things like effectively well, becomes a lot more challenging because suddenly you have to actually think about your Warlord, you have to think about what your models are, you have to think about them not getting into your backline, because if they do, that's 3 CP each. So think crucially about that oath. Always make sure you check with the enemy player what their oath they're swearing is and how they're going to perform inside of the game, because the buffs they get obviously tie with the oath they're achieving. So be very clear on what oath you're performing so you know exactly how to counter them in a certain manner. And these guys are going to focus a lot more on the idea of, like I said, killing pressure on them, because the lot less units means a lot less things to kill. A lot less things to kill means more board control. More board control means more presence on the board. More presence on the board means more actually units being able to attack the Knights. So following the killing with these guys can be very well. Just watch out for the Canis Rex, because that guy with like the full hit reroll and the full hit wound roll will annihilate you. Don't get me wrong, he will annihilate you. So be careful, be very careful. So overall, Knights, be careful about that oath. Make sure you understand what oath they're swearing. And these guys are going to be a lot more elite than Chaos Knights are. So actually hold a lot more value towards the idea of killing them than scoring in certain situations. Now we're going to move on to Chaos Knights. Now, Chaos Knights are a lot different to Imperial Knights for these couple of reasons. Number one is that they're going to love War Dogs. They don't like the armigers in the Imperial Knights. Sure, they're there, they're meant for scoring, whatever. But these guys are going to be a lot more better at having more board presence, as their allied units actually don't suck. You see, Chaos Knights allied units are involved with the Imperial Agents. Now, the Imperial Agents aren't horrible, but they're not exactly amazing units that offer like huge buffs, because obviously they lead squads, and with Imperial Knights, there's no squad to lead, so they're just going to be sitting there like either being a lone operative or being a little bit annoying just over in the field. But these guys actually have viable units they can use. Example, the Nurglings, or the Bloodletters, or the Plague Bearers, or things like that can be very effective at taking these guys in to a point where they actually become a viable part of the unit. A recent player I versed had like 20 Nurgling, had 20 Plague Bearers instead of Nurglings, and it was crazy. That sticky objectives was so annoying to deal with. It was amazing. So these guys have so much more board presence. You have to keep our board presence, and because they have more board presence, their whole like theme of Battle Shock becomes so nightmare. They will heal off you. They will, if you have one wound left, do not have one wound left with Knights, because they'll just pop that stratagem on the War Dogs, take that one wound, and heal the Knight or heal the War Dog themselves, and they will just shoot. They can also just move through units and move through walls, things like Nightshade, which is incredible. This is why personally I think Chaos Knights are a bit better than Imperial Knights, because they just offer so much more board presence and really implement the idea of like kind of like more hoardy Knights than elite Knights. If you prefer to play like very like lore focused Knights, I would say play Imperial Knights. If you like playing big guys, play Imperial Knights. If you like playing smaller guys and more board presence, play Chaos Knights. So the biggest counter to these guys is that they're not as tough. Maxing out, bring it down is a lot more easier with these guys because the War Dog count goes up, meaning that the 9+ wound models you have in your army are so much more easier to kill, meaning you can actually bring it down a lot more easier. And obviously, having board presence is a lot more harder with these guys, but doing it is still very possible because obviously their model count doesn't go above 10. My Nob squad literally outnumbers them, which is crazy to me personally, I think. So keep in mind that you're going to be able to position these guys in a way that allows you to get past them and hopefully get like that primary along with bring down, because bring down is a lot more easy with these guys. So with Chaos Knights, I would highly recommend be aware they're going to take actually good allied units. They're going to have actually really good allied units on your thing and fast allied units. So keep in mind they're either going to be going with Nurglings with like the deep striking or the infiltrator, or they're going to be going with Plague Bearers for sticky objectives, or they're going to be going with Bloodletters just for like general melee based focus. Keep in mind Chaos Knights board control, but bring it down a lot more easier, and generally killing them is a lot more easier as well, and they're not going to be running as much elite stuff. But that's going to be my full video on how to counter Knights, Chaos, Imperial, Dreadblade, Freeblade, anything you need, I can show you how to counter. If you actually really enjoy this video and you like this kind of how to counter video, just do all the YouTube stuff, leave a like, subscribe, get a comment. I'm awesome 300 subscribers. I'm super stoked to get there. When I get to 500 subscribers, I'm just going to be releasing a couple of courses that are going to allow you to absolutely maximize your potential in playing a 40k and give you so much more value than what you're actually kind of achieving in your regular game. Now, but like I said, it's going to be me today, and hope to catch you in the next one.